It is said that this is a truly terrifying movie. It is also the heaviest American horror film I have ever seen. Thai-style thriller. Japanese-style gore. It can be considered a high-energy version of Painted Skin. Hurry and watch it with your unlucky friend. The story begins. The girl looks ahead with a face full of fear. She discovers her mother is frantically biting something. Taking a closer look, she sees that it is actually her own younger sister. Before the girl could recover from her fright, her mother turns around, revealing a terrifying face. The girl is so frightened that she rushes toward the exit. Unexpectedly, the father cruelly seals the door. Soon from the cellar, the girl's heart-wrenching screams can be heard. An eerie pattern also appears on the door. In the blink of an eye, 35 years later. That day, Mary accidentally hits a deer and kills it. She simply decided to take the deer home, preparing to treat her family well. She had once thought of taking a knife down. Its internal organs fell to the ground, and it was giving off a pungent stench, as if it had been dead for several months. Mary was instantly overwhelmed by the smell and lost her appetite. So, she threw the deer in the car and turned away. But little did they know, strange things began happening at night. It was seen inside the belly of the deer. A ghostly hand suddenly reached out. Then, a monster crawled out from inside. At this moment, Ben was sound asleep. Suddenly, he heard footsteps on the roof. He took his flashlight and looked up. In the end, he found nothing. Just when he was filled with doubt, as he turned his head, he saw, there's a large hole under the house of neighbor Mary. Look, that gap looks like it was made by some monster's impact. Just as he was about to find out what was going on, a strange cry suddenly came from behind him. Ben had just turned around to take a look. Unexpectedly, at this moment, the neighbor's big light suddenly turned on. Hey, what are you doing? The next morning, Mary took the child out for a stroll. She discovered that the flowers and grass on the ground had withered significantly. Meanwhile, that conspicuous hole came into view. Mary thought it was just raccoons nearby and didn't think much of it. But at that moment, the baby in her arms suddenly cried out uncontrollably. It seemed very afraid of this place. With no other choice, Mary had to hurry back inside with the child. When night fell, the family was immersed in a place of comfort. Unexpectedly, at that moment, the baby in the surveillance footage was awakened. At the same time, an extremely terrifying monster appeared nearby. Immediately, the monster reached out with its claws toward the baby. Mary hurriedly got up to check after hearing the noise. She found that her son seemed to be wrapped in the sheets. But when she opened it, inside was actually a pile of branches. Before Mary could recover from her panic, suddenly, a ghostly hand pulled her back under the bed. Just like that, the monster drilled into Mary's body and took over her flesh. Then she picked up the baby and walked straight into the woods. From then on, the baby never appeared again. And from that moment on, Mary, she was no longer a normal person. Her body would often move in an eerie manner. It was also accompanied by an extremely unpleasant putrid smell. No matter how much it was washed, that smell always lingered. Mary's series of strange actions, finally on this day, discovered by her eldest son, Shouty. A terrifying scene scared Shouty so much that he no longer dared to stay at home. He hid in the neighbor Ben's house, trembling. He kept saying, "Don't tell my mother where I am." Ben was puzzled upon seeing this, but he still went along with the concealment. But little did they know, Mary didn't care after hearing this, insisting on entering the room to take the child away. At this critical moment, the child's father also rushed over. Hearing his father's voice, Shouty felt like he had grabbed a life-saving straw, and ran into his father's arms. After returning home, Shouty wanted to tell everything about his mother, but he couldn't bring himself to say it, because at that moment, his mother was standing there, staring intently at him. Such an exciting plot must be viewed on a good device. The iPhone 16 has officially been released. If you don't want to buy it at a high price, you can try renting it. Rent on the RenRenZoo app. It's very cost-effective at 59.9% of the official price. You can rent not only phones but also cameras and game consoles. You can rent anything. When you need to rent something, just go to RenRenZoo. Everything can be rented. Save money on RenRenZoo. The next morning, Ben found out that Shouty didn't come to class. So he hurried to Shouty's house to inquire about the situation. It was Shouty's father who opened the door, but he seemed like a completely different person at that moment. "My son? I don't have a son." "Shouty, your obedient son. Are you trying to stir things up?" "I don't have any children, young man." "No, you do have a son. I've seen him." "Young man, I don't have time to argue irrationally with you." Upon hearing this, Ben was completely stunned. He obviously has 2 children, so why won't he admit it? Ben was so angry that he was about to leave, but he accidentally kicked the mat at the door. On the board, there was also the eerie inverted triangle pattern carved. Ben felt that this pattern was very abnormal, so after returning home, he searched online for related information. The result was shocking when he looked it up. This pattern specifically referred to half-human, half-demon evil ghosts. They lived in the forest year-round, just waiting for beautiful women to pass by. followed them all the way, looking for opportunities to take over their skins, specifically preyed on their children. Finally, the cunning monster. And she didn't forget to bewitch the husband at home, making it impossible for her to detect any abnormalities. Connecting it to Mary's recent strange behavior, Ben instantly realized she must have also been possessed by the monster. In this way, Mary's husband's behavior then makes sense. But those two children would never have thought one day he would be eaten by his own mother. To prevent further tragedies from occurring, Ben started to monitor Mary's family all day. He noticed that Mary often went in and out of the cellar. Each time she would come out with a bag, to find out what was in that bag. Ben took advantage of the night and rummaged through the trash can. He discovered that it contained nothing but the belongings of two children. Mary's frequent trips to the cellar finally piqued her husband's interest. Just as he was about to pry open the floor to investigate, Mary suddenly walked over. She whispered a few words in his ear. The next moment, her husband's expression turned vacant. His eardrum ruptured and blood flowed out. It was clear that her husband's soul was already under control. Only then did Mary swagger away. But when she returned to her room to take a shower, she found her skin was severely peeling. Her teeth also fell out with the slightest touch. It seemed that Mary couldn't use this body for much longer. He needed to quickly find a new body to possess. This opportunity was keenly noticed by Ben. So, he took advantage of Mary being away. He secretly infiltrated the cellar. Inside, he saw a terrifying ram's horn prominently displayed. Below, there were countless branches. From the looks of it, it seemed to be some kind of terrifying sacrificial ritual. Ben was just about to call the police. But at that moment, he unexpectedly saw a family photo of his girlfriend. Up above, his girlfriend and her mother had their faces slashed. Only the younger sister was unharmed. Ben instantly realized the monster was about to attack his girlfriend's sister. So he hurried to the seaside without stopping. He indeed saw that the monster had already taken its prey into the forest. Ben didn't have time to think and quickly chased after it. Following the screams, he had made his way to a tree hole. He originally intended to pull the girl out from inside. However, the strength of that monster was truly astonishing. Instead, it caused Ben to crash headfirst into a rock and faint. When he woke up again, the tree hole had long since disappeared. Ben could only return home with a face full of frustration. Little did he know that the police had been waiting for a long time. It turns out he was reported for trespassing. He was to be taken away for 15 days of administrative detention. Seeing this scene, Ben hurriedly explained that he was chasing a monster. However, not only did the police not believe him after he said that, even his father thought he had lost his mind. Seeing that everyone didn't believe him, Ben looked again at the young stepmother. But who would have thought at this moment? The flowers next to the stepmother quickly withered. It turns out the monster has already abandoned Mary's body, took over the stepmother's body. Seeing this, Ben didn't say a word. He grabbed something nearby and threw it. The father hurried over upon hearing the commotion. But at that moment, the stepmother acted like a drama queen, curling up on the ground, crying and sobbing. She looked like a victim acting wronged. Seeing this, his father was completely enraged, urging the police to quickly take his son away. But as soon as he got into the police car, Ben noticed his stepmother was saying something to the police. Noticing something was wrong, Ben quickly called out to his father. It made him determined to go check on Mary's house no matter what. But at that moment, his father couldn't hear him at all, just treated it as child's nonsense. And as the police car drove further away, Ben was terrified to discover this is not the way to the police station at all. But instead, he drove straight to the seaside. Then he grabbed her like a chick. He was being held down in the seawater. It looked like Ben was about to drown alive. At a critical moment, the police suddenly gained a glimmer of awareness. In order to avoid harming innocent people, the police suddenly shot at themselves. Meanwhile, the father was also filled with curiosity about what Ben had just said. So he entered Mary's cellar to take a look. What he found was an extremely horrifying scene. Mary and her husband had both already perished. The woman was gruesomely dead on the ground with her belly hollowed out. The man was hanged from the beam. He suppressed his inner fear and continued to look around. He suddenly discovered a pile of branches placed in front of him. Just as he was about to step forward to take a closer look, unexpectedly, the next second, Ben's father fell heavily to the ground, accidentally knocking over the oil lamp. The fire quickly spread before his eyes. The man had no time to hesitate and quickly escaped in pain. However, the wife possessed by the monster relentlessly pursued from behind. Even when struck by an iron rod, it couldn't be harmed in the slightest. Just as that monster was about to burst out of its body, just at a critical moment, Ben arrived. Without saying a word, he aimed at the monster and fired 2 shots. As the monster fell to the ground when hit, Ben hurriedly supported his father, trying to leave. But at that moment, a terrifying thing happened. Inside the stepmother, chaos began to erupt. Soon, half of the monster's body had already emerged. Seeing that the situation was dire, the father and son hurriedly took off running. However, as the fire quickly blazed up and burned the altar, Ben finally remembered that his brother at home was in danger. Sure enough, when he ran back to the room, the younger brother was already missing. Seeing this, he didn't care about his own safety. He grabbed the gasoline and rope and charged straight into the forest. After a thorough search, he finally found the monster's lair. Inside was pitch dark. He couldn't see his hand in front of his face, and there was a pungent, rotting smell emanating from there. Even though at this moment, Ben's heart was filled with extreme fear, but for the sake of his brother, he still bravely charged in without hesitation. He saw that his brother was already unconscious. He was firmly bound by the roots of the trees all over his body. Just as Ben was about to take him away, unexpectedly, deep within the cave, suddenly, a chewing sound could be heard. Upon closer inspection, it was the monster eating a child. Upon seeing this, Ben quickly picked up his gun, preparing to shoot the monster. But who would have thought it would only take a blink of an eye? The monster had already dragged its prey away without a trace. Upon seeing this scene, Ben hurriedly handed his brother over to his girlfriend outside. He himself returned to the cave, continuing to search for his girlfriend's sister who disappeared days ago. Fortunately, heaven never fails those who have a will. Soon, he spotted the figure of the little girl. However, just as he was about to rescue the girl and leave, the possessive monster suddenly launched an attack. With its extremely crude demon claws, it recklessly rubbed against Ben's face. In that critical moment, Ben quickly picked up a branch and pierced the monster's neck. He then struggled to escape to the cave entrance with the little girl. However, just as Ben was about to climb out, he was unexpectedly grabbed by the foot by the monster. Although his girlfriend was pulling with all her strength from behind, she simply couldn't withstand the monster's immense strength. As Ben was about to be pulled back into the cave, at the crucial moment, his father drove up. Under the intense spotlight, the monster momentarily became disoriented. At the end of the film, the three of them supported each other as they left the scene. I thought the matter ended here, but who knew that the next day, Ben's girlfriend inexplicably sent him a flower. Back in the car, he sniffed it carefully, only to find it was actually a fake flower. Moreover, the petals were already quite wilted. Remembering that the monster had the ability to wilt flowers, Ben instantly showed some concern. At the same time, his girlfriend was out at sea with 3 kids having fun, but on her face, there was an eerie smile. It was clear that the monster had not been truly eliminated, and a new crisis was about to strike. Alright, today's story ends here. Subscribe to the channel to continue watching. See you next time.